On this Friday night, Manitoba's COVID crisis. The province sends an SOS to the feds and a plea to the public.
Even if you're well, stay home.
As the rest of the country starts to turn a corner. The debate over resuming in-person learning.
Is this the best time to bring kids back?
As one province gets set to send students back to the classroom. Peace for now in the Middle East. How both Hamas and Israel are claiming victory. And the lost sounds of Gord Downie. The new album from the Tragically Hip and its beloved frontman.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Farah Nasser.
Good evening. Glad to be with you tonight. The May-long weekend is finally upon us, this one, a more optimistic one. While the pandemic might not yet be over and much of Canada is still under tough restrictions, there are some encouraging signs of where our country is headed. Over the last 7 days, daily cases dropped more than 25%, and the national vaccination rate is climbing fast. Nearly 49% of Canadians have now had at least one dose. At the same time, few people have been fully vaccinated. And with the virus still spreading, public health officials are urging everyone to be careful and follow the rules this holiday weekend.
Our actions this long weekend could not be more important. COVID-19 resurgences have followed social gatherings during past holidays and long weekends.
There is one province where that message is more critical than any other, Manitoba. It's dealing with the highest infection rate in Canada right now. The situation in hospitals so severe that Premier Brian Pallister called the Prime Minister to ask for help. Eric Sorensen has tonight's top story.
5 Manitoba COVID patients are now hundreds of kilometers from home in intensive care at hospitals in Northern Ontario, including Thunder Bay. The transfer was necessary because Manitoba is running out of ICU beds. One ER doctor describes the situation as dire.
It's the worst I've ever seen it. We are at pretty much 100% capacity without the ability at the moment to take more cases.
The rate of daily COVID cases is almost 2.5 times that of Ontario. Beleaguered Premier Brian Pallister spoke with the Prime Minister today. He requested up to 50 critical care nurses plus other personnel.
Our health system is on the brink of being overwhelmed. The contingency plans are being triggered.
A ban on social gatherings, even outdoors, will only go into effect at midnight tonight. Winnipeg's mayor says the province has been too slow to act.
I think the time to act with strong proactive measures were weeks ago.
Today, a simple message to Manitobans that it's serious.
If you're sick, stay home. Even if you're well, stay home.
The continuing rise of cases in Manitoba does not reflect what's happening in most of the country. In other western provinces next week, British Columbia will announce its reopening plans. Alberta wants students to return to in-class learning. And Saskatchewan will reopen restaurants if certain vaccine targets are met. In Ontario, golfers will be on the links starting Saturday. In Quebec, curfews will end May 28th, 1 week from now. And the East Coast hopes to open the Atlantic bubble somewhat as early as next month. Newfoundland and Labrador is considering opening to all Canadians by July the 1st, Canada Day. In short, much of the country is turning the corner. This Toronto golf course got word yesterday it could open.
The phone started ringing. People got excited. The emails were constant.
Experts believe it won't be long before all provinces can be more synchronized in opening up.
As vaccines start to go out, in a widespread way, I think we will all be synced at some point in the summertime where we all have very, very low community transmission.
Manitoba has that to look forward to, but for now,
we need to suffer a little bit longer so we can turn this curve.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Next door, Ontario is resuming the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for people who received it for their first dose. Data shows the risk of blood clots is even more rare after a second dose, approximately 1 in a million. And with tens of thousands of doses set to expire in Ontario, the province is allowing some people to opt in early. Michael Couture reports.
Now we are confident we can now offer a second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine.
Ontario's top doctor may be confident, but not everyone is. Sherry Langer got her first dose of AstraZeneca between March 10th and 19th, so she would be eligible to get a second dose. But She's holding out for an mRNA vaccine.
I won't wait indefinitely, but hopefully the information will be there for me to make a really good, informed decision for the best protection.
Now, preliminary research on vaccine mixing is promising, and Canadian health officials are anxiously awaiting a UK report on combining a viral vector vaccine with an mRNA, which is expected to be out in early June. But there remain approximately 55,000 doses of AstraZeneca in Ontario waiting to go into arms.
Doses are going to expire, and it would be a complete tragedy to not fully vaccinate people if they could be fully vaccinated.
To administer them before they expire, Ontario will be shortening the interval between doses from 16 weeks to, in some cases, 10 weeks. The manufacturer's recommended interval is 12 weeks.
It's fairly negligible at this stage here, and so we think it's fine to use the 10 to 12 weeks. Many countries like UK were down to 8 weeks.
All provinces stopped administering AstraZeneca as a first dose, but most continue to offer it as a second one. Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland and Labrador are waiting for guidance from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. Doctors believe many will jump at the chance of getting a second dose, but Sherry Langer won't.
They can't cover everybody at this point anyway. What's best for me is waiting at this point.
She'll keep waiting and watching the evolving science of vaccines. Mike Lecouture, Global News, Ottawa.
There has been another AstraZeneca-linked death in this country. A New Brunswicker has died from a rare blood clot disorder associated with the vaccine. The person, who was in their 50s, went to hospital with symptoms 17 days after receiving the shot. There have been more than 20 confirmed blood clot cases in Canada linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine. More than 2 million doses have been administered across the country. 4 people have died. In Alberta, today was the last day of online learning for most students. The province still has the highest active COVID-19 case rate in our country, but schools across much of Alberta will resume in-person classes next week. Ontario's top doctor says he'd like to see schools there reopen soon as well. Heather Urux-West looks at the benefits and the risks of sending kids back to class.
For this Edmonton family, nothing about the last year has been constant or routine.
I find it such a roller coaster for them. Their emotions, they go back and then all of a sudden, oh, we're sent home. Do I have everything?
Alberta students head back to the classroom in person on Tuesday. Schools moved online across Alberta in early May, but with surging case numbers, some schools, including those in Calgary's Catholic School District, asked the province to close in-person classes back in April. Finding out schools were reopening so quickly took the district's superintendent by surprise.
I defer to the experts who have made this decision, but I think I also speak on behalf of many parents, many of our staff members that are also questioning, is this the best time to bring kids back?
Canada's third wave has hit young people and kids harder than the previous 2. Still, this pediatric emergency room doctor supports getting kids back to class.
I think it's a good move. I think probably if you had asked me, actually, I would say it wasn't a great move to take them out of the classrooms.
Across Canada, some students are back in classrooms already. In BC, at most schools, in-person learning has never stopped. In Saskatchewan, Regina area students returned to classrooms in early May, while most Quebec high school students return at the end of the month. Ontario's top doctor says he'd like schools to reopen in June, though the Premier says others want the province to wait.
It could possibly increase cases by 11%. That's concerning with me.
The school year is not over yet, but a summer filled with vaccinations will make things a lot better by fall. Heather Urux-West, Global News, Calgary.
Canada has extended its ban on incoming flights from India and Pakistan by another month. The ban was implemented on April 22nd and will now expire on June 21st. It applies to direct flights from both countries. The federal transportation minister says the measures have reduced the risk of importing cases and new variants. A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appears to be holding tonight. 11 days of fighting killed more than 250 people and caused extensive damage, the vast majority in Gaza. Today, many Palestinians in the enclave returned to what is left of their homes. Entire families searching through the debris, hoping to salvage some items. Israelis also have a respite from the fear of attack. Israel and Hamas are both claiming victory, but as Redmond Shannon explains, the clash between police and worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque shows this truce is very fragile.
Celebrations of the ceasefire after Friday prayers, but the mood at Al-Aqsa Mosque soon turned a familiar corner. Tear gas and rubber bullets from police, rocks from some worshippers. It's unclear what triggered the skirmishes. In Gaza, there was peace, but also a grim reality. Many residents returning to where they used to live. This woman said, this truce is only good for those who have homes. Where are we supposed to go? Gazan authorities say 65 children there were killed. That figure is 2 in Israel. That contrast didn't stop a Hamas leader declaring a strategic victory.
The Palestinians believe that for the first time, they've broken Israel's monopoly on the narrative, and that the world is finally taking note and listening to the Palestinian narrative and following Palestinian social media that has enabled them to bypass mainstream media.
Benjamin Netanyahu, still clinging on to his job as Israeli leader, claimed victory too, describing the campaign as an outstanding success that degraded Hamas's ability to attack Israel.
It's important for him that he wanted to make this show of force, to remind the Israelis to say, look, you have an enemy sitting on your border. I'm the one who's been protecting you.
But the threat of a new conflict remains very real. Hamas doesn't recognize Israel's right to exist.
We have no plans to change our security assistance that we're providing to Israel.
A resolution from US Senator Bernie Sanders to block a huge arms sale to Israel is unlikely to pass. But it does indicate the rising number of Democrats voicing concern for the scale of US support for Israel, something the Israeli government will at least be taking note of when making its next move. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Home prices hitting the roof. Coming up, how young Canadians are feeling blocked from the booming real estate market. Plus, angry birds when danger lurks above. It's officially swooping season in Vancouver. Trees and traffic lights are again prime real estate for some aggressive crows. So if you're walking with your head in the clouds, remember, these big birds get very protective around their nests in the spring and summer, and they have terrifying dive bombing skills. Global News is launching a new series called Priced Out, looking at housing affordability for young Canadians. There is a growing cohort under the age of 35 who feel their dreams of home ownership are becoming out of reach because they just can't afford it. And the Bank of Canada issued a warning this week saying household debt, especially mortgages, leaves many households vulnerable in case there is a significant financial change in their future, like rising interest rates or job loss. Our senior business correspondent, Anne Gaviola, joins us now. Anne.
Farah, this warning comes as new, tougher mortgage stress test rules are set to kick in next week. These are going to reduce affordability for those looking to buy a first home, and many millennials have been priced out.
It's really disheartening.
29-year-old Patty Tracy has been house hunting for nearly 2 years. Even with a 6-figure household income, getting into the market seemed tough pre-pandemic, but now his income has taken a hit, and with prices on a tear and extreme bidding wars the norm, home ownership seems even further out of reach for him and his fiancée.
We were looking, and the houses in Guelph a year ago were $400,000, $500,000. Now they're like $600,000 to $800,000 a year later. How does that happen?
He joins a growing cohort of young people who feel priced out of a market that's become even hotter. A report this month from National Bank of Canada says the average down payment for a home in Toronto would take nearly a quarter century for a household making $180,000 a year to save, and more than 30 years for a place in Vancouver. The bank of mom and dad is a factor too. According to a recent TD Bank survey, about half of millennial buyers say they rely on parents to chip in financially for home ownership. That's a stark increase from 2 decades ago when parental help was used towards 14% of down payments. The majority of households have prospered during the pandemic. Couple that with historically low mortgage rates and a desire for more space, it's the recipe for an ultra-competitive housing market.
Inequality has been growing in Canada for about 30 years. And within that same period, governments at all levels have done little on the house front.
The COVID economic downturn has solidified the fortunes of homeowners while taking a disproportionate toll on renters.
It seems unsustainable, and yet that's what we say every couple years. Like, this is a bubble, it's going to burst, and then it somehow doesn't.
If you're wondering whether buying or renting is the best path for you, personal finance experts point to the 5% rule. Take the total value of the home you're looking to purchase, multiply it by 5% and divide it by 12 months. If you can rent for less than that, then renting may be your best bet. That decision of whether to rent or to buy is obviously a deeply personal one. And in the next installment of Priced Out next Friday, I'll be looking into the stigma associated with renting for life and the impact that has on those who are struggling to get into the housing market. Farah?
And Gaviola in Toronto. Thanks, Anne.
Did you kill your wife?
Next, a BC man breaks his silence on a years-long mystery.
You're watching Global National.
It was a death that rocked a quiet corner of BC's beautiful Okanagan Valley. Arlene Westervelt's body was pulled from Okanagan Lake after canoeing with her husband Bert in 2016. But was it a tragic drowning or a cold-blooded killing? Nearly 5 years later, what really happened to the 56-year-old nurse is still bitterly disputed, leaving her husband and her family poisoned by bad blood and accusations of murder. Here's Global's Jules Knox.
What happened between Bert and Arlene Westervelt on Okanagan Lake on June 26, 2016 is shrouded in mystery. The couple spent the day paddling and picnicking when their canoe tipped and Arlene died. Her sisters immediately called foul play.
I just screamed it out. He killed her. He killed her. I know he killed her. I knew it.
But Bert said his wife drowned, and investigators appeared to believe him. Arlene's death was treated as an accident at first.
The first conversation I had with the coroner, I begged him and pleaded with him to do an autopsy, and he said there wasn't going to be an autopsy.
And there wasn't until days later when a divorce lawyer contacted police to reveal information about their client, Arlene. That prompted Mounties to start a murder investigation. And 3 years later, Bert Westervelt was charged with second-degree murder.
Just total disbelief. Never, ever did I think it would get that far.
On the advice of his lawyer, Bert wouldn't talk about the details of how Arlene died. But he's always maintained his innocence, and he shared his story in an exclusive interview with the New Reality.
It's been hell, yeah. But it's not just on me, it's my friends' family.
Last summer, in yet another twist in this long-running drama, Crown prosecutors announced the murder charge was being stayed without explanation. That decision outraged the Hennig family. They still believe Arlene was murdered by her husband and continue to call for justice.
And make no mistake, we're not going away and we are not going to give up our fight.
The stay period is set to expire in less than 2 months, and after that, it's unlikely the case against Bert Westervelt will ever be revived. So we asked him about the circumstances leading up to his wife's death. His answer to that question and much more on our exclusive interview with him for the New Reality. And we'll reveal new details about how the investigation into Arlene Westervelt's death started to go wrong almost immediately after her body was pulled from the lake. Farah.
Jules, thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing your full story tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on The New Reality. Toronto's captain is out. Still ahead, an update on John Tavares' condition after a collision during the playoffs. In sports, there's always a risk of injury, and there was a scary moment during last night's Stanley Cup playoffs game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens.
Was it a hit for Tavares? The hit was right to the head. Oh boy, that is scary.
Leafs captain John Tavares has been discharged from the hospital, but he's out indefinitely after that accidental knee to the head by Montreal's Corey Perry, who was speeding by. Tavares has a concussion, but tweeted today thanking the hockey community for its support and medical teams for helping him back on his feet. He says, "I look forward to when I can wear the maple leaf on my chest again. Until then, I'll be cheering on the boys along with Leafs Nation." That's Global National for this Friday night. I'm Farah Nasser. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is Spirit Canyon near Ibex Valley in Yukon. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep sending us your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. I hope you get some time to check out some beautiful scenery in your part of the country this long weekend. Robin Gill will be with you tomorrow. Until next Friday, take care of yourselves and each other.